Hello, and welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to business confidence. I've been in business 10 years, and I've found that my success has come as much through the confidence I've gained over time as through any skills or talents that I had. The people I interview have either given me that confidence or inspired me in some other way. One such person is Michael Moran, co-founder and CEO of 1080. Now, I knew Michael before he set up his own business. I was a magazine editor. He then led another business, and he was a great interviewee back then, as he is now, as hopefully this podcast will show. 1080 help people maximise their potential and help organisations realise that potential. And if you put that another way, they help people find jobs, get more success in their careers, or help businesses get the most out of them through a mixture of things like coaching and development. Now, I've always been fascinated by Michael's journey, and to me, he's a natural startup entrepreneur, but he himself hadn't always seen it that way, and he came to it late in his career. Until around a decade ago, setting up his own business from scratch wasn't really how he saw things working out at all. This is his story.
We've been going now 10 years. I'm going to say, Trevor, I think I'm like a geriatric entrepreneur because I didn't establish this business until I was 59. Now, reflecting for the podcast, I had on 3 occasions when I worked in corporate life, doing what I've been doing, tried to either persuade the business to sell me a part of the business or actually do a management buyout. And I had worked for quite a long time in the listed environment. So at 59, having been fired, having fallen out with investors, I decided after a 12-month gap to set up 1080.
So it was a long time in the coming. Then you'd had 2 or 3 kind of near misses in sort of setting up a business or buying a business. So was it like a now or never moment? I'm 59, and if I'm going to do it, now's the time.
When you say a long time in coming, I for example, I didn't see myself setting up a business. I always saw myself sort of taking existing business. In fact, when my background as an HR professional, working in the public sector and then in the private sector, working in the city, and I worked for a long time in a commodities and derivatives trading house and made the transfer from HR into the line, got myself an MBA, and I suppose by observing, thought, you know what, I could run a business. I've been looking at the people running this business, and they're not that special. They're very successful, but I think I could do that. And so I set myself the goal of finding a business where the owner was thinking about retiring, or he wanted to sell on, and he wanted somebody to sort of take that business and sort of make sure it was successful. It was almost his pension. And I came across a business just been bought by what was then called Penner, and I ran that business. So in my mind's eye, I was always thinking about taking an existing business. If I fast forward to 10 years ago, I got such a close affiliation with a small group of people in that business. It didn't really seem like I was starting from scratch. It was, okay, all we need to do is take a group of people with us and we can do what we're doing. And indeed, I remember as part of the planning process, sitting down with one of the founders and sort of working through the products and B, the people we thought would buy those products. And we came up with a number of something like 660,000 in year 1. In actual fact, probably the only time I've ever got my budgeting right, we got about 600,000 in year 1. Now,
that's pretty close. That's pretty close. Yeah.
When I reflect back, I think that was a really brave step. But at the time, it just seemed, well, we can do that. I mean, and to do that, I raised money so I could pay 2 out of the 4 founders. I was at that stage of life where I could cash in a couple of endowments, so I could sort of give myself a buffer of 100,000 to see if it didn't work in 18 or 2 years. But I don't recall thinking, this is like we must do it now. It was just sort of a natural progression, having run these businesses, moving into them. That's the journey.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing you as I do, and I knew you at the start of that journey, and I knew you for a few years before that. I mean, I could see that there was a sort of ready-made business there. Like you said, you had that thing and you mapped it out and thought, well, there's £600,000 worth of business. And I suppose that's one message that our listeners might be interested in, is that if they actually sort of sat down and worked out, if they were thinking of starting a business, that, that sort of initial, where would I feel reasonably confident of picking up business? It would be that if you actually sat down and thought about it, there's all sorts of ways that you could get business. And probably in your case, I know you as somebody who had a really good reputation in the market already. So you felt like you had a good sort of client base in waiting, I guess.
Yeah. And again, if for the benefit of listeners, I mean, we've always got business on personal recommendation. So when we did that piece of planning, we were relative. As it turns out, obviously some people did give you business, some people didn't give you business, and we got some degree of luck. I remember we won an NHS contract, and a business less than 2 months old. So getting through public procurement, but we ultimately was those relationships that gave us the business. And so that planning process, I mean, you do it optimistically and you go into it hoping it's going to be okay. But I thought we had some level of certainty we would get those numbers. When I reflect back now, I think it was a much bigger step than I did at the time. In terms of, and I'll come on to the future challenges, and it's not a challenge I've solved, is what I think you're looking for when you've got relationships and relationships give you business, you're looking for repeatability and predictability. And by the way, if you're thinking of selling the business, and I'm not, but if I'm thinking of selling the business, you need that because that's what gives you the true value. And therefore, trying to find ways and means to guarantee revenues. If we do what we do today, we'll always have £1 million turnover. We've got £1 million turnover. But the trick is, can we get to 3 million, of which at least 1 million is guaranteed, i.e. you've always got a stable business. Post-COVID is interesting because we've gone through COVID. Yes, like most business, we took a small hit in terms of turnover, but we still remain very profitable. So I think most people would say, I've got a sustainable model. But I still think we need to be 3 times the size as we are today. And that challenge hasn't gone away. And we have done lots of different things to try to get to that next level. We still haven't found that. So it's hiring people, or we've definitely gone down the path of trying to have technology that gives us scalability. Marketing, as you know, Trevor, you've tried a whole lot from sort of website optimization to going to conferences and speaking. And I think we've pulled most of those levers. We clearly haven't pulled the right one or the right sequence of levers because we're still at £1 million business. Part of the challenge is it is a bit like a Rubik's Cube. I know there must be a solution to this problem. I just got to try and find it. And actually, that's one of the things that keeps me really, really engaged about the business. So but on our 10th anniversary, it's very easy to say, well, it was okay. It was a success. We did what we needed to do. But the fact it hasn't got to where I want to get to is definitely the thing that sort of makes me get up in the morning and say, hey, this is a problem that is solvable. You just got to find the right way to solve it.
Well, I don't know about you, but what really resonates with me is what the power of the network achieved for Michael and his colleagues. They sat down, they planned it all out, and worked out that in year 1, they had about 2/3 just through their networks alone. And then they went out and did it. Now he is certain that the challenge of scale and size that he now faces are merely entrepreneurial problems that need to be solved, levers to be pulled in the right order, or a final twist of the Rubik's Cube. Now, I love those analogies, but what is it that gives Michael this inner sense of certainty that these are solvable problems? What is it about his behaviour that makes him feel that way? Let's go back in time for the answer to that one.
You need a level of resilience and you need a level of confidence. So I'm going to go back, so the big influence on my life was my mother. I'm an asthmatic, and early on in my life, I had a lot of time away from school. I had a very bright sister. I'm not bright, by the way. I explained to somebody else. I'm perspiration, not inspiration, in terms of how I get there. And so that ability to sort of, my mum would tell me the story when I was upset about, not being able to play football or not going to school, about Robert the Bruce and the spider, and after a terrible defeat, he sat in a cave and he watched the spider try to climb up to the roof, and a number of times it went back and went out, but only after many times of trying did it get to the objective. I think you have to have resilience and you have to have that challenge to be there. Key to, I think, success is that level of resilience and that level of optimism, i.e. I'm absolutely certain there is a solution to that problem.
Are there things that you sort of think, like the sun's up again, it's a new day? Or, are there particular things that you say to yourself?
When you've got your own business, or you're running a business or the leader of a business, it does give you that great opportunity to install sort of mantras. So we always have a mantra. So I think currently it's go beyond. We all start every meeting by looking at what the successes we've had in the past week. Dare I say it, to instill a positivism and optimism, I think it's really positive. So yes, I do have those sort of things. And a more business one is around being quite analytical about what you do. So, if you're in a relationship business, surprise, surprise, you need to see people. You need to be talking to people. So being assiduous about visit reports, going and seeing clients, how many have we done this month? So two levels, you've got the one around behaviors you want people to follow and influencing people, but you also need to have a handle on the metrics. The other thing I'm always surprised on is how many businesses just don't know how much cash they've got in the bank, or don't know what their P&L is. Are they making money? Now, great discipline, that's something I learned very early on, and therefore doing the right things and having that stuff. If you do the right things, the right results will come. But you've got to do the right things.
As you look back now over 10 years, and so this is obviously quite a timely interview, because I know your 10th anniversary is sort of coming up in June. The way you've approached problems and your mindset, basically, has that had the biggest sort of impact on the achievements you've had?
Oh, well, I'd like to think so. And you're not asking the right person. You need to ask, I suppose, our clients, our suppliers, the associates. I like to think, for example, I think we've created a great sense of followership from a whole group of people. One of the reasons why we were successful so quickly, it was so easy not only to bring clients, but bring in associates or call on people, and so I would like to think that, and therefore, what do they follow? I think when we started the business, we said we want to do three things. We want to have fun, we want to do good, and we want to make money and be profitable. I would like to think the people who work with me, they know I'm driven by going back to this, maximizing their potential. I have their best interests at heart. Is what I'm trying to do going to make them better, going to help them? And I think that sort of mentality, you create more friends than you do enemies, so that's great. The other thing is about this positivism, thinking the best in people, trying to do good and looking for opportunities, and being open-minded around those sort of things. So again, I would like to think they're the things I espouse. And people say, people ask me, Michael Moran, what's he like? Or, 20 years from today when I'm not around or whatever. That's what I'm hoping people say about me, because that's how I've tried to live my life. I've been very fortunate because I can do it in a business I truly love. I always say to people, I'll do it whether I got paid or not, but it enables me to live my life how I want to live my life. And at the same time, I don't separate work from life. This is me. It's what I do, and I've got to the position where I can do what I want to do, irrespective. And the fact it actually is a business that we had a time when we weren't making much money. And then I was reflecting on that, thinking, But on the other hand, I'm sort of creating into the community for like $750,000, which is going out through other people. That's a big achievement in my view. Let's
come forward to the here and now. What are you up to right now? Are there particular initiatives that you're particularly excited about? Things that you're launching, that you're doing, just so our listeners understand where you are sort of right at this moment.
Okay, so I'm still seeking this holy grail of how I grow the business 3 times the size it is. One of my key mantras around how we do that is generating repeatable, predictable revenues. And I see the application of technology critical to that, to embedding you into your clients. So we're just about to launch a new coaching app. We've not built it, we've white labeled it. But the great news is, by the power of the internet, you can find people. So we found a business in Canada. The app's there. It's going to enable our coachees to pick coaches. It enables you to coach across the app. It enables you to report to the client. You can book your meeting. So it's taken all out the admin that goes behind coachee selection and managing. So that's really exciting. Personally, I've got a book which is 95% written. Actually, the last 5% is the hardest bit to achieve. But the book's about how you establish a portfolio career, because the move away from one employer for life, or even 3 employers over a career, I think we are into an era where people will work when they want to work, for whom they want to work. That will be out, Seti, at some point this year, hopefully. And of course, our 10th anniversary party, we're going to have a big bash at the Shard.
How can people find out more about you, Michael, and your business?
Well, obviously, on the website, www.1080.co.uk, we have a significant presence on LinkedIn. We use LinkedIn extensively. So, for example, we use LinkedIn Live. So we have coaching sessions or career transitions. We've got a podcast called 1080 Careers. So these are all things for people to engage with the business.
So that's Michael Moran. And think about a couple of things that he said there that really stand out for me. The power of the network again, and how much easier and successful that makes his everyday business life. Then think about what he said about their business mantra: have fun, do good, make money. And related to that, crucially, he said, do the right thing and the results will come, but you've got to do the right thing. Amen to that. Thank you, Michael, for a great interview. All these years on, and you're still a great interviewee. If you have any questions about this podcast or want to find out about our business, you can do so by finding me, Trevor Meriden, on LinkedIn, or email me on trevor.meriden@merribournemedia.co.uk. And please do share this podcast with someone you think may be interested. It's available on Spotify, iTunes, and many other podcast providers. Well, that's all we've got time for. Thanks for listening, and see you soon.